In this video, we're going to take a closer look at some of the specifics associated with sexual reproduction in mosses. And remember that mosses are in the phylum known as Bryophyta. And when we refer to sexual reproduction, we are referring to that alternation of generations that we talked about in a different video. So this video is going to cover alternation of generations with some of the specifics of what happens in the phylum Bryophyta. So let's start by taking a look at the structure of these bryophytes. So you can see in this picture here that the sporophyte part of the plant is this area in this green box here. And the sporophyte is attached to the gametophyte, which is the foot of the plant. So this area right here is the gametophyte. And remember that the sporophyte is multicellular, and its cells are diploid. And the gametophyte is also multicellular, but its cells are haploid. Within the gametophyte, there are these structures known as gametangia. And gametangia is plural, and some of the plants have male gametangia and others have female gametangia. And the female gametangia are known as archegonia, or archegonium is the singular. So the sporophyte actually develops in the archegonium and stays attached to it. Then there are cells within the sporophyte that are going to go through meiosis. So there are cells up here going through meiosis. And remember, in meiosis, a diploid cell produces haploid cells. And more specifically, these haploid cells are going to be unicellular haploid spores. And these spores are protected by the sporophyte until they're ready to be released into the environment. So if we take a closer look at kind of this top part of the sporophyte here, we kind of zoom into it here. So this area here is part of the sporophyte, but more specifically, this area is known as a sporangium. And you can also see that on this picture here. These little kind of teardrop shaped things are the sporangia. And the sporangium has this calyptra that is kind of a protective coat around the spores inside the sporangium. There's also this structure called an operculum, and the operculum is just kind of the cap over the sporangium. So when the spores are mature and ready to be dispersed, the operculum is going to fall off and those spores are going to be released into the environment. So picking up where we left off on the last slide, those unicellular haploid spores are going to be released into the environment, and if they find a suitable place to survive, they will go through germination, which includes mitosis. So you can see that here. You can see the spores being released here. And it's going to go through mitosis in order to form a larger structure known as the protonema. And you can see that structure here. The protonema is then going to mature into either a male gametophyte or a female gametophyte. And the male gametophyte is going to have the antheridia, which is the male gametangium, or the archegonium, which is the female gametangium. And remember that during mitosis, whatever the ploidy of the parent cell is, the daughter cells are going to have that same ploidy. So since these haploid spores are going through mitosis, then all of the cells that are forming this protonema and then maturing into the male and female. So since the haploid spore is going through mitosis to produce the protonema that is ultimately going to mature into a male gametophyte or a female gametophyte, that means that all the cells in the gametophytes are also going to be haploid. The gametophytes that we talked about developing on the previous slide are then the gametophytes that we talked about on the previous slide are then going to go through mitosis. Remember mitosis, we were starting out with haploid cells in this case, and so we're going to be producing more haploid cells. In this case, the haploid cells that are being produced are going to be the male gametes or the female gametes, depending on whether it's a male plant or a female plant. So in males, the gametes are going to be sperm, and these are sperm that have flagella. So these sperm are able to swim through their environment. And in the female, in the archegonium, eggs are going to be produced. And eggs are going to be the female gametes. And you can see that on this picture over here, where we have the antheridium here in red. So this is going to be the male structure, and the sperm is forming in the antheridium of the male gametophyte. And then the archegonium, we can see in this blue structure here, and then it's kind of zoomed in up here. You can see that the eggs are developing inside the archegonium. During fertilization, the sperm are going to swim to the egg. And during fertilization, we're taking two haploid gametes and forming a diploid zygote. And you can see that diploid zygote here in this picture. And notice that it's staying within the archegonium. So the archegonium, the female structure, is actually going to protect and nourish that zygote. Now that diploid zygote is, once again, remember, it's staying inside that female structure, the archegonium, where it's going to be protected and nourished. And it's going to go through mitosis. And since it starts out as diploid, the resulting cells are also going to be diploid. So the zygote goes through mitosis in order to form a multicellular diploid sporophyte. And you can see that happening over here in the picture. So you can see the zygote inside the archegonium that is going through mitosis to first form an embryo, and then ultimately we're going to get back to the development of a sporophyte. And so this is a new and different sporophyte than what we started out with, and then the cycle is going to restart. So remember, we started out with a multicellular diploid sporophyte, and we're ending up with another new diploid multicellular sporophyte that is then going to go through the cycle again.